Yesterday's election should be a wake-up call for the Republican Party. We just had a disaster, folks, and it was not just in blue states. It wasn't just in special elections in weird cases like New York City and New Jersey. No, that was not what happened. This was a nationalized election. There was not elections everywhere. We didn't have elections in Michigan, but there were elections all over the country. There was elections in Georgia. There was judicial races in Pennsylvania, and it was a disaster for Republicans across the board. It swept in blue areas, swing areas, red areas, and the new MAGA voters switched right back off again. They either stayed home or they flipped their votes to the Democrats. Look at Hispanic precincts anywhere, the youth vote, working class areas. And this is clearly the result of a number of things, but in particular, a referendum on what has been up until now the second term of President Trump. Last Sunday, we did a stream and we looked at Trump's approval ratings. They were on that date the lowest yet in his second term, and they are now, as you can see, they've gone even lower. It has been a new lowest approval rating for Trump since his second term began, every single day since last Sunday, and now at a net minus 11.2%. And again, I want to emphasize, this is not just one biased poll. This is the result of polls over time. Even if any or all of these pollsters were biased, these are the same people doing polls. So unless they're biased, it's somehow increasing over time. This is the trend. And it's not hard to see what the problem here might be. In fact, as if to show they've learned nothing from the election results, the White House has just put out a whole slew of statements in the past 24 hours about what a great golden age we're in. And this is the problem, because for a lot of Americans, we're not in a golden age. For a lot of Americans, things are about as bad as they were a year ago. And to come out as Trump did and the White House did, and they keep pushing this narrative that this is America's golden age, the greatest time ever. And the reality is, for people that don't feel that way, it looks remarkably bad. In fact, here's a post from Robert Barnes. Hold on, let me pull it up here. Hold on, I gotta make it bigger. What is going on with my windows here? There we go. I'll make it bigger on the screen too. Hold on. So here's Trump giving a speech. He says, "I am pleased to report that today the United States has the strongest economy, the strongest borders, the strongest military, the strongest friendships, and the strongest spirit of any nation anywhere. This is the golden age of America." And Barnes writes, telling people who can't afford a house, can't even afford a decent car, can't afford groceries, can't afford basic health care, and see little job growth, that they're living in a golden age while you do Gatsby parties and fancy ballroom renovations is not a winning message. And that, more than anything else, I think is the essence of it. Trump had promised a golden age, promised America first. What we've gotten is a past year of foreign interventions, including even today, still doubling down on this "we need to protect the Christians in Nigeria" line. The American people care about the American people, not Christians in Nigeria. Yes, they're Christians. Yes, we should care about them. But we know what this always means. It always means we're going to be the World Cup again, aren't we? We're going to bomb Nigeria again. We're going to, just like we did Afghanistan, we're going to protect the Christians in, Syria, which we have most decidedly, by the way, not protected. In fact, Trump is apparently bringing an al-Qaeda terrorist, the notorious al-Sharaa, to the White House next week. But it's the renovations in the White House, just bad PR. Why do it? Brought no tangible benefit. Makes it look like this is what's on his mind, is the parties he's throwing at Mar-a-Lago. And this is what we've seen in the polls, folks. Now, as to some of these races, by the way, I meant to talk about this on Sunday. This Zoran Mondani guy. Now, let me just say, first of all, I get it. He is a commie punk, and he is going to be absolutely awful for the city of New York. That is all true. But to see, as we have in the past several weeks, conservative voices, leading conservative people saying, we got to get out and defeat Zoran Mondani, by voting for Andrew Cuomo might lead some of us to think to ourselves, wait a minute, what? Why are we supporting Andrew Cuomo again? What about Andrew Cuomo? What about the governor of New York whose policies killed tons of people, including putting COVID patients into nursing homes, just like Gretchen Whitmer did? He shut everything down in the city, just like Gretchen Whitmer did. I mean, it's as if Republicans across the country were telling everybody in New York, you got to vote for Gretchen Whitmer to beat Zohran Mamdani. Can you imagine? Can you imagine if Republicans were saying vote for Gretchen Whitmer? How that would maybe just rub people the wrong way? And of course, that's not the only thing about Andrew Cuomo. He was a left liberal governor. He proudly made New York a sanctuary state. This is the guy that Republicans need to support. I mean, just imagine. I mean, don't even imagine. Think about why there are so many people out there who are disaffected, who aren't involved in politics anymore, who think it's all pointless. Why do you think those people have lost hope? Maybe it's from people telling them, you got to vote for Andrew Cuomo to beat Zohran Mamdani. Why was this something the conservative media all felt like they had to get behind? Why was this something they had to care so much about? Because they needed to, because Mamdani was going to be somehow so much worse than Andrew Cuomo. First of all, how do you know? Andrew Cuomo was the governor of New York. We know what his record was. Hard left liberal. And of course, if you know anything about the politics in New York City, you know what this was really all about. Israel. Because the Israel lobby spent millions and millions and millions of dollars in that election because Mamdani had said, I don't support Israel the way these other candidates do. There was actually debates in the Democrat primary, and they asked every candidate, what foreign country will you visit first as mayor of New York? And all of them said Israel, 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 except for Mamdani. He said, why'd I leave the country? I'm going to support the people of New York City. Smart answer. Now, he may have had his own ulterior motives for giving that answer, but that was a smart answer. And indeed, I heard from somebody who lived in New York City, said, in the primary, I got multiple mailings every single day saying I had to support Andrew Cuomo because Mamdani was going to kill all the Jews in New York City. That's barely even an exaggeration. That's why the Republican Party establishment had to make a big deal out of the New York election. Was for Israel. The same thing the Trump administration spent the past year proving they care about more than America is Israel. But getting back to the need for recalibration here, a lot of smart comments have been posted on X about this. Here's one of them. This is from a guy. I don't know who this is. His name is Todd Starnes, Newsmax host. Okay. He says 10 months after the inauguration and nothing has been codified. States are ignoring Trump's executive orders and there have been no consequences. The do-nothing Republican Congress has done nothing, absolutely nothing. Hearings galore, but no one has been held accountable for weaponizing our government. All those documents and files the FBI and DOJ promised to release, we're still waiting. And why aren't we defunding taxpayer-funded schools that refuse to follow the executive orders on boys and girls sports? And why haven't they dismantled the Department of Education? Nick Fuentes says Trump's approval is down 50% with 18 to 29-year-olds since the beginning of 2025. And the reason's clear. The MAGA movement has been hijacked by Israel first and has completely lost touch with the forgotten men and women of America. America first is the only path forward. Daniel McAdams from the Ron Paul Institute quotes Trump at the same thing we played that clip from, where Trump is saying grocery prices are way down. And he says, that's not true. I concur. Do you guys find grocery prices are way down? I don't. I just paid $5.50 for a loaf of bread and $2 for a half gallon of milk. Gasoline was $3 a year ago, and it's $3 today. Here's Julie Kelly. Actually, she's commenting on Dana Lash, however you pronounce it. Former NRA spokeswoman. Here's what Dana's take was. And this is not just Dana's take. This is many, many people in Conservative Inc. Thank goodness so many podcast hosts spend so much time hosting and defending Nazi twinks, that's a reference to Nick Fuentes, rather than host Winsome Sears, Jack Chettarelli, or Jason Myers. or even talk redistricting. They were so helpful to the movement. And this is Julie Kelly being sarcastic. Yes, genius take. Democrats, including a guy who said he wanted his opponent's children dead and a radical Muslim, won because Tucker Carlson had Nick Fuentes on his show a week ago. Nailed it. And yeah, this is the Conservative Inc. take. Matt Walsh has been on a tear these past couple of days about how important it is for the conservative movement to unify. How dare people like Rand Paul criticize President Trump when we need to unify against these Democrats who are conspiring to take back our freedoms. Meanwhile, 2 days ago, Donald Trump, the president, is tweeting about how important it is that we defeat Thomas Massie. And this is the way Conservative Inc. always operates, isn't it, folks? They lecture you when you don't toe the party line, but they don't care at all when they are the ones dividing people. They think nothing of attacking Rand Paul or Thomas Massie for having the audacity to vote for America first when Trump doesn't want that. And then they'll attack you for not getting on board with their lousy candidates. Here's another comment from a guy in New York City. I assume. Let's see. New York City, born and raised. He says, takeaways. Mamdani improved upon the primary among low-income and middle-class Black and Latino voters. Cuomo ran up the score in GOP households, Orthodox enclaves in the wealthiest precincts. And then he says the Trump Mamdani voters are working-class Latinos, South Asians, and Muslims. The Trump Mamdani voters. Yes, they're a real group, folks. Here's the White House's official tweet today. The U.S. has the strongest economy, strongest borders, strongest military, strongest friendships, and strongest spirit of any nation. Robert Barnes makes the accurate reply. Pretending the economy is strong is the kind of dumb gaslighting that hurt last night. And as far as we can tell, they've learned nothing. Thomas Massie himself says maybe we shouldn't be alienating independents and shrinking the GOP tent, which has been done through attacks on the non-interventionist liberty wing of the party and calling the Epstein situation a hoax. And then another tweet, he says, to avoid a repeat of last night's shellacking in the 2026 midterms, Republicans should quit covering for pedophiles, put America before Israel, put farmers before corporations, quit funding wars abroad, reduce spending to control inflation, and quit attacking independent voices. Well, that sounds exactly right to me. But will they learn this lesson? I doubt it. We shall see. We shall see. Robert Barnes says, if GOP wants to avoid a bloodbath, they need to protect and promote Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. at every stage, be more aggressive on medical freedom, food freedom, support Brooke Jackson, farm-to-table rights. Yeah. Owen Schroyer talking about the lessons learned. He says, after seeing the response from the administration today, meaning that Trump speech, it doesn't look good. Pam Bondi's on Fox talking about trade. Trump blaming the shutdown after they've been claiming it's hurting the Democrats all month. And then Owen Schroyer says, seems no one is giving Trump any good advice or information. No, he's not. They are not. Mike Johnson, Speaker of the House, says, I don't think loss last night was any reflection about Republicans at all. What an absolute moron. J.D. Vance had this to say. First, he says, I think it's idiotic to overreact to a couple of elections in blue states. That's a stupid thing to say, Mr. Vice President. We're not overreacting. We're taking notice of a warning sign. And that was not a couple of elections in blue states. As we said earlier, that was Pennsylvania. That was Georgia. There was elections all over the country. And the loss was everywhere. So he says, first he says, Scott Pressler, Turning Point, and a bunch of others have been working hard to register voters. I said it in 2022. I've said it repeatedly since. Our coalition is lower propensity, and that means we have to do better at turning out voters than we have in the past. Yes, turning voters, that's a good thing. But the problem with low propensity voters is not just getting them to the polls. It's giving them a reason to go. They act like it's just this magic formula. If we put more into turnout, put more money on turnout, and we'll get higher turnout. It does not work that way with low propensity voters. Democrats got their low propensity voters to turn out for marijuana and abortion. You need issues to get them to turn out. And saying it's America's golden age never works. Then J.D. Vance says, 2, we need to focus on the home front. The president has done a lot that has already paid off in lower interest rates and lower inflation, but we inherited a disaster from Joe Biden, and Rome wasn't built in a day. Again, that's just minimizing the issue. He says, we're going to keep on working to make a decent life affordable in this country, and that's the metric by which we'll ultimately be judged in 2026 and beyond. Yep, that's right. And then, and this is rich coming from J.D. Vance, number 3, his third point, the infighting is stupid. Oh, yeah? Is it? Is it, J.D.? Weren't you trashing Thomas Massey just the other day at a TPU USA event? Bad-mouthing the man after noting his wife had died. Then you went on to attack him. Yeah, Thomas Massey's a great guy. His wife, that's very sad. But also, he doesn't vote with the Republicans, so screw him. Liar. The infighting is stupid, J.D. Vance says. I care about my fellow citizens, particularly young Americans, being able to afford a decent life. I care about immigration and our sovereignty, and I care about establishing peace overseas. I care about establishing peace overseas so our resources can be focused at home. Doesn't get it. He doesn't get it. All these neocons, they have the same bullshit line. America first means putting foreign countries first. If we just dump enough money into Israel, we'll solve that problem. Then we can put money back at home. We got to beat them over there before they come over here. It's complete BS. If you care about America, put America first by putting America first now. Not protecting Christians in Nigeria. Protect Christians in America now. And J.D. Vance closes by saying, if you care about those things too, let's work together. No, you earn our support, not the other way around. This is what politicians do all the time. Why'd we lose? It's your fault, America. It's not our fault. It's not the Trump administration's policy. It's Nick Fuentes. It's Tucker Carlson. It's Thomas Massey. It's these dividers. You're the president. You're the White House. The buck stops with you. You earn our votes. The infighting is stupid. That's a self-serving remark intended to attack those who say the administration is not delivering on its promises, which it isn't. David Frum, neocon idiot, says Republicans are having a big public argument about the anti-Semitism that has contaminated their party. Democrats aren't. To which Max Blumenthal responded, Republicans are having a big public argument about the neocons that have contaminated their party. Democrats aren't. Here's Mike Pence. There's no room in the conservative movement for opposing American support for Israel. And there's absolutely no room in the conservative movement for anti-Semitism. Dan Caldwell, who you may recall was the America First high-level Pentagon official who was fired because of a lie coming from the White House. Dan Caldwell said, by this standard, Ronald Reagan, Mike Pence's political hero, would be cast out of the conservative movement because despite being arguably a very pro-Israel president, he repeatedly froze or cut off aid to Israel when he felt Israel was undermining American interests. Yeah. So that's where we're at, folks. Apparently, the White House still has not gotten the message. Hopefully, as Trump's approval ratings continue to fall catastrophically and the midterms get closer and closer, they will at some point have a come to Jesus moment. In the meantime, all we can do is keep talking, and hopefully at some point they get the message. Hope this helps. Talk to y'all live on Sunday night at 8 p.m. Until then, as always, thanks for all you guys do for liberty. Peace.